PGA Championship. These guys are playing well week in and week out. And no, they're not always winning every week, but how are they going to? How is anyone ever going to have a 22% win percentage when there are so many of these guys who were little 10 and 12-year-olds when Tiger was awesome in 2002 and built their entire games around the way that Tiger played? So his influence on the game is huge, not only back then when he was amazing, but even now, because all of these young studs, they play like Tiger played, but no one markets that and no one recognizes that these guys are phenomenal and there's a whole big group of them because of Tiger Woods. But the fact is, Father Time, just like Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger we talked about earlier in the show, Father Time will catch up to Tiger Woods, and eventually he will not be able to play this game anymore, and golf must continue. We talked about it with NASCAR. When Tony Stewart and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Jeff Gordon move on, the sport must continue. And if it can't because you lose one or two superstars, that is a big black eye on the sport. For me, the sport continues because I love watching golf week in and week out because of what I'm seeing on the leaderboard with names that I recognize that aren't Tiger Woods. I got my dream scenario, honestly, Justin, this past weekend because I saw all of my favorite guys, Koepka, Fowler, Thomas, Spieth, Johnson, the list goes on, playing with Tiger Woods and against Tiger Woods. For me, that's a dream scenario, and I hope it continues for the next 4 to 5 years, but at some point, it will end. And then you've got to fall in love with Spieth and Thomas and Koepka and Johnson, and the names go on and on. Like I said, you have to fall in love with those guys or the game is dead to you.
It almost feels like, and I know everybody's rooting for this, but it almost for golf feels like those guys all need to be in contention, and then Tiger needs to win or beat one or two of them in a playoff, and that will elevate them more than if they actually beat him. I still think about when I see Y.E. Yang, that he actually competed and beat Tiger. And then I think about Tiger beating Rocco Mediate, these names of guys that Tiger beat that I think of in my mind. I almost think that Tiger needs to be in a field, and golf's now their perfect scenario is they need Tiger to win and win in dramatic fashion over a couple of these younger guys. And that will actually elevate them more, Eric, than if they actually win and beat Tiger at this point. That's what's crazy. There's so much Tiger hype, even on like Monday afternoon. I just got on ESPN.com just to see what was on the main page and what was on the story. It had already switched over to the NFL draft. There was nothing on Koepka, and there was one line about how Tiger was basically happy with second place. And the article was Tiger talking about that he really didn't have a swing and he never expected to be at this point. He was basically happy. There was nothing about Koepka, a little bit in the article about Koepka winning, but there was no headline. There was no like backstory on Koepka. There was nothing behind the scenes that you'll get. Even in NFL regular season games, the writers will go in and they'll find out like, oh, this play we drew up on Thursday night and we text the coach. There was nothing like that with Koepka, nothing about his mindset or his family or anything. It's just like he won. Okay, that's it. Let's talk about Tiger. And again, that's what moves the needle for the media, and that's what gets them clicks now. The problem, like you said, is when Tiger is officially done with the PGA Tour, even if he goes to the senior tour or whatever, when he's done with the PGA Tour, what's going to happen to golf? They're going to be in the same situation. So golf, their marketers, TaylorMade, Nike, all these people that are around Tiger and have some of these other guys, Eric, they need to market those guys the way that they did Tiger back into the early 90s and make him a household name. Hell, Frank, his head cover, is more famous than Brooks Koepka and Spieth and Fowler at this point. More people can recognize those than they can the golfers, and that's directly from Nike and marketing. Now that they have social media, Eric, there is no excuse for not developing this other talent.
Well, I think you're 100% correct. I think the fans of our show can tell that we're pretty passionate about it. And again, we're not blaming Tiger Woods. This is not his fault. The way the media covers him is not his fault. He's out there playing golf and doing his job. But the PGA Tour marketing, the PGA Tour media, and even ESPN, Fox, and others, they're setting themselves up for failure to be able to not be able to cover a sport more completely in the years ahead. So, Justin, one final question about Tiger Woods, just answer real quick. He is now 26th in the world golf rankings. a little over a year ago before he came back at the Hero World Challenge and performed very well. And I told you that I think that he's really hitting the ball much better than I thought. I thought his fusion back surgery was going to be a success. It's proven all year that it was. But he's 26th in the world now. He had been ranked over 1,000 in the world at one point. Did you ever think that Tiger would be this high up in the rankings? And I honestly don't think he's done yet. I think he'll get back into the top 10. Not probably to number 1 in the world again, but I think very real shot at getting to at least inside the top 10, especially if he goes on to play well again next year. Did you ever think that day was coming?
Honestly, no. I thought he was pretty much done when he was struggling to get out of the golf cart at the Ryder Cup. And even I heard Nick Faldo talk about 2 years ago at the Masters, he told someone that he was done with golf, that his back was a wreck. And even watching him try to come back and do these comebacks and basically couldn't even make it through day 1 and 2 of tournaments without having to pull out or disqualify or shoot horrible numbers and just all over the place, to think that he could go in and shoot his lowest Sunday round in a major of his entire career by shooting a 64. I never thought we would get to that point, but we talked about this months ago, and the question came up of, is Tiger the most polarizing athlete in the world? And I think, again, that he is. I don't think there's another athlete that you can plug into an event and get a 73% increase over what you had last year. Even when you think about NBA stars, and they're probably the biggest guys when you start to think about LeBron and Durant, I don't think that you could just pick them up and plug them into a game and get that type of increase that Tiger does. He just moves the needle, and it's almost not the media's fault. They have to cover what people want to see. And I think every single person that was there and everybody that was watching at home wanted to see Tiger win, which makes Brooks Koepka's win even more impressive, that he overcame all of that. And down the stretch, even when he faltered a little bit towards the end of his first front 9, he found a way to just keep grinding out birdies and just keep hitting great shot after great shot. But again, people didn't want to see that because they want Tiger to win so badly. So it's a bad position, but I think if you are ESPN and Fox and NBC, you have the rights to golf for the next couple years, for the foreseeable future. If Tiger leaves, you know what happens in the ratings. It would behoove you guys to just develop these other stars behind him. That's the media that I really want to blame, is the ones that actually have the rights to golf, because they're the ones that are going to see their future fall. If they don't get the numbers that they need, it's going to be detrimental to them for their TV deals that they didn't develop these guys.
The shots that Tiger hit on that Sunday, some of them absolute darts to the pin, and he was dialed in. He was even fist pumping. On the 18th hole when he made that birdie, even though it wasn't for the win, the kind of drama and the fist pump that he gave the fans was similar to what a Tiger win would have looked like. And I think that was actually him notifying the public that he's in this now and he's good to go. And he saw from himself that he is, in fact, back. And so when he fist pumped on the 18th green to make that birdie, and like I said, still lose by 2, but I think it showed the world that he's back and he can play world championship and major championship golf again. And to me, that's really exciting. Justin, we're going to move it over to the NBA real quick. I just, have to circle back to this news that you and I talked about before our vacations, which was, where will Carmelo Anthony land? And I know that as a LeBron fan, I talked about not wanting him to go to the Lakers. All the buzz was about him getting that opportunity to go to Houston, play with Chris Paul and James Harden. That, in fact, did happen. So not much in terms of breaking news. It took a little while to develop. It took a little while to happen and get all the details worked out. But Carmelo Anthony is now a Houston Rocket. Do you feel, Justin, as our sort of NBA analyst here on the show, that that's a good move for Houston? It's obviously a good move, I think, for Carmelo if he has any shot at ever winning an NBA championship. But I'm talking Houston. Is that a good move for them, and does that make them any better against the Golden State Warriors?
It's a good move for Carmelo, and what we talked about with it's his best chance to go actually win a title and make a deep playoff run. But for Houston, I don't think it makes them any better. I don't think that he is a better all-around player than what they got out of Trevor Ariza last year. He's definitely not as good of a defensive player. He's probably not half the defensive player that Trevor Ariza is, and Ariza's actually a better spot-up three-point shooter. That's going to be something that they're better work on with Carmelo and trying to develop that with him, because he's already seems to be pushing back the notion of coming off the bench. Maybe he'll soften to it. Maybe it got brought up, but he wasn't interested in Oklahoma City last year. He was very defiant against wanting that. I can't really see him just all of a sudden wanting to do that in Houston. Maybe with Chris Paul there and James Harden there, that'll put him in his place. But it didn't matter that he was with Paul George and Russell Westbrook. So I don't really know how there's not a lot of difference in star power. I mean, you can make a case that Westbrook and Paul George are two younger, better stars than even Chris Paul is towards the back end of his career, and he didn't care then. So I don't really think it's going to make much difference. I think it takes Houston further away from Golden State because you start to think about, if you have Carmelo on the floor, who's he going to stop? That's the problem. And then on the offensive side, he doesn't fit in with what they want to do. We've talked about Houston that they like to shoot threes or get to the rim, that the mid-range shot is more of a high-risk, low-reward shot. You're still only getting 2 points and you're shooting it 3 to 5 times further out than you are a layup, or you could go out a few more feet and get an extra point. So Carmelo's style doesn't even fit that, where he just wants to get in isolation and go that way. If he wants to play on the second unit, I think that would be the best for Houston, because then they could sort of put him out there with Chris Paul. When Harden's off the floor, or vice versa, they could put him with Harden when Paul's off the floor, and he could be more of a focal point of the offense. But if you're Houston, do you really want to take the ball out of Chris Paul's hands or James Harden's hands and put it in Melo's? That's where I don't think it makes them better, is less activity for Chris Paul or James Harden. And on the defensive end, Eric, he's just, throughout his career, he's been a liability. He's 1 year older. I just don't see that he's going to make that much difference for him. And when you look at what Houston lost in Ariza and Ba Mute, two very good defensive role players, guys that just knew how to do their role. If they didn't get a shot a game, they didn't care. They'd go out, they'd space the floor, they'd play hard, they'd hustle, they'd play defense. I don't think you're going to get those things from Melo that you got from those guys. So I think it actually is a setback for Houston.
Couldn't agree more. I'm not a Melo fan. I think that obviously stats-wise, he's put up some of the most stats out of that draft class, but he's also one of the last guys remaining. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, Kyle Korver. There's not a whole lot of guys left out of that draft class, and this is probably Carmelo's last stop. I think LeBron will outlast them all just from a physicality standpoint. Dwayne Wade probably has one more year in Miami. But Carmelo's going to be a catch-and-shoot guy in this roster, probably second unit, like you said, and I agree. I don't think he makes them any better. So congrats to Carmelo for maybe getting an opportunity to chase a title before his career ends and the sun goes down. But for Houston, I don't think it makes them any better, and I think it actually could make them worse at times. Well, that'll do it for episode 212 of Talk Back. Justin, it's good to have you back in the studio. Our vacations went well, and we're ready to rock and roll through the NFL previews. We've got NBA season coming up, Major League Baseball playoffs, and, of course, the college football season. A lot to talk about this fall on Talk Back. We'll hit you up next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of Talk Back. Staying current on sports is our number one goal, so we drop a new episode each Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or the podcatcher of your choice. For more info about the show, to meet the hosts, or to partner with us on future episodes, please visit TalkBackFanTalk.com. We really enjoy hearing your take on the world of sports, even when you disagree. After all, this show is dedicated to you, the fans. So get direct access to us on Twitter using @TalkbackJustin and @TalkbackEric. Check out our corporate feed on Twitter and Instagram using the handle @TalkbackFanTalk. We hope you have a great week. We'll talk back at you next time.